Bueno, Gebben, muchísimas gracias por acceder a este podcast. Bienvenido a TiroYCaza. De verdad que es un placer que estés aquí. Y bueno, vamos a comenzar con la primera pregunta. Bueno, Gebben, mucha gente te conoce por tus títulos, ¿de acuerdo? Pero bueno, quiero empezar básicamente por el principio. ¿Cómo empezaste en el tiro al plato y qué te hizo engancharte a este deporte?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be part of your channel and just get to know shooters around the world a little better. And yeah, thanks for the questions and the opportunity to be here. So, yeah, I got involved in sporting clays because my dad and I wanted to become better at shooting birds and bird hunting. So, like hunting quail and doves. And someone that we hunted with was like, "Hey, you should try clay shooting because you'll be able to hit more clay targets, or excuse me, you'll be able to hit more quail and doves." And so, as we started shooting clays, that happened. We got to be better hunters, and yeah, so it started there, and it started in 1994. I guess was the first time that I shot a clay target. So I've been doing this for 31 years, and it's been a really fun sport to be a part of for the majority of my life. I'm 40 years old, and I've been doing the sport since I was 9 years old.
Y después de tantos títulos, ¿qué te sigue motivando para seguir rindiendo al máximo nivel?
I've always heard from my coach, Steve Schultz, and other people around the game how talented I am, and how they see me having high levels of success and whatnot, and I believe that I'm one of the best talents to shoot this game, and just kind of seeing the accolades that I do have compared to guys like George Digweed and Richard Faulds and Brandon Powell, Anthony Matarese. I'm in my opinion way behind those guys still, even though I'm viewed as kind of one of the top shooters. So I definitely have goals and desires to win more championships and kind of get to their numbers. But more than that, I really enjoy the game. I love the game. It's kind of like golf with a shotgun, and every time you go and shoot a target, you're kind of letting your art form, like your natural artistic ability mixed with the athleticism and kind of the science behind shooting a shotgun come together. And so I just love being able to make smooth and perfect moves with that perfect connection on the targets. And so I'll always love breaking clay targets, no matter how I am ranking compared to the other top shooters in the world. It's something that I'll do for my entire life, as long as I can see and still hold a shotgun. I'm going to shoot forever. So I would say, though, currently one of the things that does motivate me also is my wife is relatively new in this sport. She's only been competing at the highest level since 2018, and she has a lot of lofty goals. She's been really successful, three-time world champion, two-time US Open champion, national champion, and kind of watching her progress in this game also motivates me as well to keep up with her, and to also just do something at the highest level together is really fun. Not many couples get to do that, and so that's another motivation that I have as well.
Bueno, vamos ahora a lo que más interesa a los tiradores, como es la técnica. ¿Cuál es el error más común que ves en los tiradores y cómo deberían corregirlo?
It's tough to say one most common mistake, because there's a lot of different mistakes shooters make with their eyes and their physical posture, and their setup and whatnot. And so I would say it's more of a combination of everything. But I would say that learning how to look at the target properly is very important. I think people hold their eyes either too close to the machine or too far away from the machine. And so understanding how to utilize your soft focus, that's kind of where you set your eyes before you say pull, is really, really important. And then learning how to lock on hard focus and then that will feed all of the information to your body, to your brain, to allow you to make a connected move with the target. And if you do hold your eyes too close or too far out, it's hard to be in sync with that target. And so I would say visual is probably the number one thing if I was to rank everything, because the reason I say that is because you can have someone break a lot of targets with not perfect physical mechanics. And if they're still looking at the bird properly, they can break the target. Even some of the top shooters don't have fundamentally sound mechanics from a physical standpoint with their stance and posture and how fast they move the gun in relation to the target. And so visual understanding of how to really look at the bird is so important. And actually, we just filmed a series with Sport and Clays Academy, my online instruction platform, about the eyes and how to utilize your eyes. And we have some different camera angles that we haven't really used before about showing where your eyes need to go before the target is launched, and then also once you shoot the target, transitioning your eyes to the second target. And so I guess to rank the number one mistake is just how people utilize their eyes. And then I would dovetail that a little bit with how you use your eyes. Maybe someone's successful shooting the first target, but they struggle hitting the second target, and how to transition your eyes from the first clay to the second clay is really important as well. And so, yeah, I would say the number one thing is probably eyes.
Bueno, en tu caso tiras con la cara un poco levantada, ¿no? Algo que también muchos tiradores hacen. ¿Qué ventajas o desventajas tiene esa técnica?
The reason I started this technique is because I have naturally a smaller head. And so when I was first growing up and shooting, I didn't have a custom stock made for me. And so just all factory stocks, if I put the stock on my cheek, I would see the back of the receiver. And so in order to get my eyes to see over the barrels, I had to have that gun a little bit lower on my face. And so even as I grew and got bigger, got more muscular, and my head size grew and all that, I just feel more comfortable mounting kind of at I guess it's like the top of my teeth almost, and it kind of slants down into this part of my jaw, and I mount it right there every time, which is, that's my anchor point. Some people's anchor points, especially people with bigger heads, will, have that anchor point more in their cheek. And I've just found that when I do mount a little lighter cheek pressure and kind of down at my jaw level here, I think it allows me to see the target better, and then it allows me to also experience a little bit less recoil, be able to have soft hands and absorb that recoil in my hands. And so there are several other top shooters that shoot this way. Joe Finizzi, one of my best friends in the game, shoots with light cheek pressure. My wife does as well. And you've got a lot of top shooters in America that shoot with very light cheek pressure. And I think it has to do with just your physical dynamics as well, like the distance between, your shoulder and your head, and just everyone's physical dynamics are different. And so you got to figure out what works best for you. And for some people that is heavy cheek pressure, and for others it's light cheek pressure.
But do you see any disadvantages in that or no?
I mean, I think if someone mounts in a different place, like if sometimes they're way down here, sometimes they're here, sometimes here, and if you're not consistent, yeah, you could have disadvantages because the gun's going to potentially shoot a little bit different place. However, you look at the trick shooters out there that shoot from the hip or over their head or behind their back, and their gun isn't anywhere close to their face. If you're looking at the target and you have that eye-hand coordination, I think that you won't experience any disadvantage if you learn how to trust yourself. And so if you in fee task as well. So in America, we shoot a lot of English sporting, which doesn't have a rule on how high the gun can be in your shoulder. So it's pretty easy to get to a consistent mount. But in fee task, depending on the speed of the target, like when you're, starting way down here, you might have different mounts. Unfortunately, I mean, we're not perfect, and so we may mount in different places occasionally. I practice my feet test mount all the time to try to make sure I'm mounting in the same exact spot every time. But if we don't, and we're still able to trust our eyes and whatnot, I think you can break targets anywhere if you mismount. But I think it is important to practice your mounting and to go to the same spot every time. So, but give yourself grace and freedom, because like you're never going to mount to the exact same place every time, because we're humans.
Cuando te enfrentas también a platos muy largos o complicados, ¿qué consejo darías para encararlos con éxito?
I would say try to get out of your comfort zone, or like your comfort window of how much space you feel in front of the target. The biggest thing I see people is say they're comfortable with a certain amount of space, and that's different for everybody. Maybe it's 5 feet in front of the clay, or in Europe, say, a meter and a half or 2 meters or something like that. If a target's going to require 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 meters in front of a clay to be able to break it, depending on the speed, distance, and angle, try to just get out of your comfort zone. One of the techniques that I do for that is I will mount in front of a bird at where my comfort zone is, and then I'll match the speed. And then just before I'm going to finish the shot, then I stretch away to kind of morally to kind of expand that gap, right? So if I lean back a little bit away from the camera, so if this is my comfort zone and I think the bird needs like this much lead, I'm going to start there, match, and then stretch to the rest. And so I would say the best drill for that for me that I've found is what I call the ladder drill. So for example, if a certain presentation, let's say a 90-degree crosser at 40-ish, 45 yards is my comfort zone, and let's say the crosser's a pretty fast speed, the faster the speed, the more lead it's going to require. I'll start at 45 yards and break it 4 times in a row, and then I'll scoot back to 50 yards. 4 times in a row, 55 yards. 4 times in a row, 60 yards. 4 times in a row, 65 yards, and so on. And just learn that one target from further and further and further distance. And as you learn how to kind of expand your comfort zone, then you'll be more comfortable. Like all of a sudden, if you get back to 65, 75, 80 yards, then all of a sudden, like a 55-yard shot doesn't seem as bad. And so I think that ladder drill has been super important for me, learning big, long targets. And I'll do the same thing on tower shots, with putting our tower up to say 40 feet, and then I'll raise it up to 50 feet, and then 60 feet, 70 feet, 80 feet, and just learn that big tower shot from the different height. And it's kind of the same type of ladder drill. And so just really pushing your comfort zone, and challenging yourself to see how far in front of a target you can push that limit. And so I think that's paid off in some of these bigger shoots that we've had over the years, where like in Fujairah earlier this year, we had some huge targets that were probably 80, 90 meters away that needed, like, in my field, like 20 foot of gap, which would be, like 7 meters in front of a target, right? And so we've had tournaments that require just massive leads. And so, yeah, just kind of stretch your comfort zone. Hopefully you can have a range, you can go to a range that'll allow you to move back like that. Or have your private setup. A lot of people in America have their own private setup at their house, and so it gives you a space that you can work as far back as you want to. I've personally broke a target all the way up to 120 yards before, and so it's pretty neat to be able to put the gun way out in front of a target and trust yourself.
Y bueno, ¿qué importancia real tienen los cartuchos y la escopeta en el rendimiento? ¿Y qué cartuchos y escopeta utilizas tú?
It's important to shoot with something that you're confident with. And so if you believe that setup with your gun and that ammo is going to work, it's probably going to work. However, I personally shoot my custom stock Krieghoff because I know exactly it shoots where I look, and then I always like to shoot. As far as shot size go, in America, the biggest shot size we can shoot is a 7.5, and I shoot only 7.5s for the reason that I find when, especially you get to distance, and then if there's some wind, the 7.5s move less than the 8s. And a lot of people are like, "Do you shoot 7.5 or 8s?" And I think it's okay. It's fine to shoot 8s inside of like 40 yards, but in my mind, I don't want to switch back and forth between 7.5 and 8. And that kind of also feeds into the choke. What like how much choke do we shoot? I like to shoot a really tight choke. I shoot a 25 thousandths from Muller. It's their Muller U3, and I just want to know that no matter what they throw at me, I have enough choke with enough shot size, and I just stick with one choke, one shot size, just so I don't have to think about it. Some of the top shooters, and I see a lot of non-top shooters, change chokes, change shot sizes all the time because they want every little advantage. And I've just found for me, I don't like. I could probably change now that I've gotten older, but when I was younger, I just wanted to have one choke, one shot size, and stick with it. So I didn't have to think about it. I could just reach into my bag, reach into my vest, put the shells in, and shoot the target with no other thought. But some people, I find that doesn't work for them. They'll do the opposite if they think that, oh man, maybe my chokes are too tight, or I don't have as many pellets in the air for, a 20-yard, 15-yard target. Then, if it gives you more of a mental advantage to open up your choke and throw more BBs, go for it. But what I've experienced is most, especially the top shooters, don't miss targets by very much, where the difference between a 7.5 and an 8 is going to matter. And so, and then also, the difference between a skeet choke or a cylinder choke and a improved modified is really going to matter that much either. So, it might maybe one or two shots here or there, but I think the most important thing is mentally get it in your mind that the combination of the gun, the shell, and the choke that you have is going to work, and trust that.
Okay, I have a question for you, but that's mine. What do you think of 1 ounce versus 1 ounce and 1/8?
So I know in Europe, the maximum is 1 ounce, and most places around the world, the max is 1 ounce. In America, we can still shoot 1 ounce and an 1/8 for English sporting. But since we travel overseas so much, I like personally to not have to change shells back and forth. And so I shoot the same setup that I would anywhere in the world here in America. I've done that since 2009. And that's just been my go-to. So I shoot a 1 ounce, 1250 foot per second, and I shoot the Mach from B&P. I've shot that shell since 2017. Well, that specific shell they came out with in 2020, but I've shot the Mach. It was a little faster in 2017, 18, and 19, but yeah, B&P has supported me since 2017. Before that, I shot for Remington. I shot the 1 ounce 1290 for many years. Did kind of most of my top level winning with that shell, and it's just that's just kind of been my formula that I stick with. And again, that 1 ounce, an ounce and an 1/8, I think it will cause some people to have more confidence potentially because there's more BBs in the air, but want to limit the recoil as well. And, you're going to feel less recoil with 1 ounce than you will ounce and an eighth. It's just more pressure out there. And so, I would say shoot as little recoil as you can mentally handle as well. Like my wife shoots a 1 ounce 1160, which is a really, really slow shell, but she has very little recoil, very little muzzle jump. And I think in the long game, like she's planning on shooting for her entire life as well. And so if you think about a long game, you're probably going to have less potential for flinching when you get older, the lighter shells that you have. And so just limit the amount of recoil, especially if you're going to shoot a lot. If you're going to be a top shooter, you've got to put a lot of work in and shoot a lot of shells every year. So I think the least amount of recoil that you can mentally handle is a good thing.
Ok. Bueno, vamos a hablar de la mentalidad y de la competición. En el tiro no solo manda la escopeta, también manda la cabeza. Cuando fallas un plato en competición, ¿qué haces mentalmente para recuperarte y para seguir enfocado?
First thing I'll do is try to stay calm. It's not always easy because when you miss, you kind of get emotionally, like if you're too emotionally attached to that miss, it can lead into another miss. Or I just had a friend this morning text me. He had a bad call, I guess, where a lot of people thought he hit a target and the ref said he didn't. And so emotionally that, something like that could cause tension, right? And then he let it lead to another miss. And so you don't want to let one miss lead to another. So try to, in the moment when you do miss, because it's inevitable in sporting clays that you're going to miss a shot, you need to try to just go back to basics. So first thing, stay calm. Then second thing, I just go right back to my setup. I ask myself a couple questions. Initially, I say, did I see that target clear? And was there any tension in my body? And if I didn't see it clear, well, that's the first thing I got to change. If there was tension, I got to change that. But if I did see it clear and there was tension, I'll go back to my setup and say, all right, where's my break point? Where do I initially see that target clear? And then where's my hold point in relation to those 2 points? And then what method am I using? And I'll just kind of reassess the entire shot from start to finish. And then also maybe assess my mindset. Was I, did I clear my mind before I said pull? Was I still thinking about something? And the more you shoot, the more you'll kind of know what happened in that moment. The quicker you'll know what happened, I guess. But I'll just kind of go through that checklist really quick, and then I'll be able to typically know why I missed once I go through my checklist. And the emotions behind the shot, I try to also go into like a moment of prayer as well, and so in the Bible it says we shouldn't be anxious about anything. And so for me, like if I feel any anxiety, it says in Philippians chapter 4 to cast your anxieties onto God because he cares for you. And just like basically I like try to share with God, my creator, the things that are causing me to be anxious. And so once I just pray those away, I feel this sense of peace come over me, and that also helps me reset and get back to basics and say, okay, here's my setup. Here's my, what I'm doing. Like I really understand what I'm doing, and I know what I'm doing, and then I believe that what I'm doing is right. That builds confidence, and then once I feel that confidence kind of come over me and that peace, then I get back and I'm 100% back in the moment, and then call for the target, let it happen, and usually the next one breaks. Doesn't happen every time, but most of the time that's kind of the pattern that I go through.
Bueno, ¿tienes algún ritual o rutina antes de disparar que te ayude a rendir mejor?
Well, I would maybe add to that a little bit. So like kind of thinking about like a holistic approach to competition, not just like what I'm doing right before the station, but like thinking about, I try to go to sleep at the right time. I try to eat at the right times. I try to eat clean. I try to hydrate, and just I approach shooting like any other high level athlete would approach their sport, whether it be basketball or soccer or golf. Like I'm trying to do what the other top level competitors are doing. And so, yeah, I mean, I try to be as consistent as possible. And definitely when I'm shooting in America, we have, it's easy to be in a routine because we are able to do everything kind of the exact same. My wife and I travel with a travel trailer that has living quarters in it. And so it's easy to kind of get through a routine. When I'm staying at hotels or Airbnbs, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. But yeah, we'll know all of our shoot times also well in advance. And so the week before, I'll kind of visualize that next week, how those different times are going to play out. And those different times might change when I eat breakfast, when I eat lunch, when I eat dinner, and I will try to prepare, the week before mentally, just to go through again, kind of a checklist. Like once I miss a shot, I'll go through a checklist, and before the station, I'll go through a checklist, and then before the tournament, I'll kind of go through that checklist as well, just to make sure I'm doing everything the way that I need to be.
¿Y trabajas la parte mental fuera del campo, como visualizaciones o respiraciones?
Yeah, it's important. Any downtime that I have throughout the day, I try to spend some time visualizing, like potentially where I'm going to be shooting next, or a tournament that's on the calendar way in the future. I'll kind of visualize myself shooting at that tournament, and then yeah, visualizing my move, and sometimes I'll even like get my gun while I'm at home, maybe even put my vest on and just kind of do, dry fires inside the house, and all kinds of things like that. Yeah, as far as breathing goes, I think the way that we breathe is also like really important. That can kind of, I guess, further explain like what I do after I miss as well, to kind of stay calm. Like I'll try to take some really deep breaths through my nose as well. Like if we get into mouth breathing, it can cause our breaths to be short and quick, and kind of build that tension. So make sure that you're breathing through your nose and you'll think clear and whatnot. And then every single day I try to carve out time first thing in the morning and then right before I go to sleep as well, to spend time reading the Bible and praying and just getting into a quiet place. Solitude time is really important. I think we live in such a high-paced world that we oftentimes don't carve out solitude time in our calendar. We just get up and go, and and we're just constantly thinking, constantly moving. But if we can get into a space for a few minutes and just quiet our mind and our spirit and our soul, I think we'll be able to see life clearer and think clearer, and understand how to do things more intentionally as well.
Bueno, has competido también en todo el mundo. ¿Qué diferencias notas entre los europeos y los americanos?
As far as the shooters themselves go, at the top level, not huge differences. I will say that when we go to England, I think that their lower class shooters shoot with better form and at higher levels than American lower class shooters, probably because the sport of clay shooting was born in England. So, maybe there's higher level information that newer shooters start with. But I think that's kind of changing a little bit with how much technology has come into the game, as far as, like digital information. You can, if you start this game, you can learn so many more things about proper technique and solid fundamentals than you could when I first started 31 years ago. So I don't think there's a huge difference as far as shooters from Europe to America. The biggest difference shooting from a physical standpoint is the European clays are different than the American clays, right? So in Europe, you guys, your standard clays are 110, and ours are 108. That's the millimeter circumference of the clay. And then also European targets are a little bit like thinner. The American targets are a little taller, and so they just fly different. I kind of wish we were a little bit more standardized, because every time we go over to Europe, we need to practice those European targets a little bit more, and then vice versa. Every time Europeans come over to America, it takes them a couple days or more to feel connected to our targets over here. And so, as far as technique goes, I think there's a lot of people in Europe that's influenced by George Digweed and his style of coming from behind targets and shooting swing through. And so I would say more Americans probably start in front of the clay than Europeans, as far as shooting like a sustain or pull away technique. However, I think you have to have every tool in the bag. So more and more Americans, including myself, are incorporating some swing through techniques into our game, into our style. And you've got to know how you personally connect with targets, because some people naturally come from behind a lot better than they do from in front, and vice versa. Some people stay in front of a target a lot easier than they can come from behind. And so you got to understand how your brain works and how your physiology works compared to other people, and try everything and figure out what works best for you.
Bueno, vamos ahora al trabajo detrás de los resultados, como es el entrenamiento. ¿Cuántos días entrenas a la semana?
It depends on the time of the year. I don't practice as much as I used to when I was younger. And part of that is also the shooting schedule. The competition schedule that we have in America is crazy. I mean, we're shooting like, most of the top shooters are shooting like over 20 tournaments a year. So, I mean, it's almost half the year that we're on the road competing. And so it's tough to, if you have 2 or 3 tournaments in a month, like when are you going to practice? So I try to do the majority of my practice in late December and January, because our season usually starts in February. And so I'll shoot like 4 or 5 days a week in December and January for about a month and a half. And that kind of prepares me to shoot well at the beginning of the year. And then I just look at the shoot schedule. And if I have a month between shoots, it's really easy to prep for that next shoot. I'll shoot somewhere between 3 and 5 days a week leading up to a shoot for 3 weeks in a row. Try to maybe take the day or 2 off before the competition. But if we have multiple shoots in a month, I mean, I might only shoot 1 or 0 days a week to practice, and it'll be more like mental practice and try to be as rested as possible, because it's a challenge going to over 20 shoots in a year. You can get emotionally tired. From a physical standpoint, I mean, it's shooting. I don't think it's that difficult physically. And my wife and I work out in the gym 4 to 5 days a week, and so we can handle it physically. But it's more of the mental and emotional side of just traveling week in and week out. So yeah, I want to. If I'm not eager to go practice and I don't want to, I'll skip that day and try to like rebuild the eagerness. But when I was younger, I shot a lot. I mean, like as far as number of clays now that I practice in a year, I might practice like 5 to 10,000. And then I shoot another like registered targets like 7 to 10,000 ish, somewhere around there, I think. And then I used to shoot a lot more. I used to shoot like 30 or 40,000 practice rounds a year, which is a lot of shells. So yeah, I shoot, I guess a big year would probably be in total practice and competition 25, 20 to maybe 30,000 rounds total. And yeah, so a lot less than I used to.
Uh-huh. Y si, por ejemplo, pues un tirador amateur tiene poquito tiempo para entrenar a la semana, ¿en qué debería de enfocarse para mejorar rápido?
I would say really work on your fundamentals, have a balanced stance, an athletic posture, train at home on the stance and the posture. Like do gun mounts at home as many days as you can per week, even if it's like 2 minutes or 5 minutes. Like spend some time. I used to put my gun in a specific corner of the house, and every time I walked past it, I would grab it and do gun mounts for 30 seconds or a minute, right? And so do as much work off the field at home as you can. And then once you get onto the field, then work on your setup and know exactly how you're going to approach each target. And it'll be conscious a little bit, but try to get to a state of mind where you're confident in your game plan, and then you can clear your mind and shoot subconsciously. So try to do all the conscious work at home, and then as you prep for your specific station that you're going to shoot, and then once you say pull, just let it happen. I see so many people shoot consciously, target in and target out. They just really, they're trying to be perfect on a target, and you're gonna waste a lot of time doing that. As far as, yeah, your setup could be right, your move could be right, but if you're conscious during the shot, you're probably going to miss the shot. So do all your planning and everything before you get into the station, so you can just look at the bird and shoot the bird and trust yourself.
Y bueno, en una competición te puedes encontrar con las inclemencias del tiempo. ¿Cómo manejas el viento, el sol o la humedad en una competición para que realmente no te afecten a tu rendimiento?
Well, if it's adverse conditions, I just pretend that I love being there. So, for example, 2 weeks ago, we shot a tournament in Wisconsin, and it was really, really rainy on Saturday, I think it was. Like so much rain. We were absolutely soaked. And in my mind, I just pretended that I liked being drenched, and I was out there shooting, and I just kept telling myself, this is really fun being shooting under a shower, basically. And if it's windy, if it's any adversity, I tell myself that I have an advantage over other people, because every time someone thinks negatively about the situation, it gives me an advantage whenever I'm thinking positively. So that's how I kind of try to approach adversity when it comes to weather.
Bueno, además de competir, enseñas y compartes tu experiencia con otros tiradores, porque tienes una escuela de tiro. La escuela de tiro se llama Sporting Clays Academy. ¿Qué enseñanza o lección te gusta recalcar más a tus alumnos porque realmente puede marcar la diferencia en su progreso?
The same stuff that we've been talking about, really in some of these other questions, the answers to the other questions, but your stance, posture, gun mount, and working on all those things outside of the range, and then set up. I use a really simple system. Every single target that I shoot, I mark exactly where I want to shoot it. That's my break point. I mark where the target visually turns clear. I call that my hard focus point. And then I put my whole point halfway between those. So if a target is slow, we can see it really early, and we mark where we're going to break it. Our whole point's halfway between there. And it's easier to let that target kind of get close to our gun, and then we make our move to it. If it's fast, the faster the target is, the further away from the machine we're going to see it clear. And so I'll mark that point, mark my break point, go halfway. So my hold point, the faster the target is, the further away from the machine my hold point's going to be, and that allows the lead to kind of be built in. And so just understanding those basic principles about setup, like you can apply them to every single target. And I find that a lot of people that are even newer shooters can implement that system really easily and break a lot of targets. And so yeah, the kind of fundamentals, we never outgrow the fundamentals of shooting. And so stance, posture, gun mount, and then setup are things that we need to be working on all the time, and that will allow our mindset to be confident, which then creates clarity. So every time that we know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and we believe in it, then we'll be able to have confidence, and then we'll be able to shoot with a clear mind. And then I would also dovetail on that as well, as saying that learning how to use your vision is really important as well. Understanding, where to set your eyes, like we talked about at the very beginning, like what's the one mistake that people make more than any other. If you have all those fundamentals down and you're not looking at the target properly, you're probably going to miss. And so understanding how to set your eyes up in a soft focus and then lock on hard focus, and watch that target clear until it breaks is also very, very important.
Ok. Y si pudieras dar un único consejo a alguien que empieza a tirar al plato, uno solo, ¿cuál sería?
Yeah, find the style that works best for you, and learn from a coach that teaches that style. And so basically what I did when I was first starting out, I remember in the year 2000. So I'd been shooting a few years, but I was still young. Didn't really view shooting as something I wanted to do for the rest of my life, especially as like a job. I didn't view shooting as a job back then when I was, 15 years old. But I remember I was 15 years old at the World FITASC in San Antonio, and I had been traveling a little bit, maybe go to three, 4, 5 shoots a year. And I saw Richard Faulds shooting, and I was like, I want to shoot like that guy. And Richard wasn't too much older than me back then. He was probably early 20s. But, as a 15-year-old, seeing someone who's really good at, 22, 23 years old, you're like, wow, I want to be like him. And so I remember how smooth he moved the gun. And I didn't approach him for coaching, but I knew someone that modeled their style very similarly. And so that was a coach in the U.S. named Steve Schultz. And I approached Steve because he had worked with one of my friends, Sheldon Benge, who had won back-to-back junior world championships. And I said, hey, teach me to shoot like Richard and Sheldon, and I want to figure out how to get good at this game. And so I would say the best piece of advice for a newer shooter: find someone's style that you really like and you connect with, and learn from a coach that teaches that style.
Uh-huh. ¿Y cómo ves el futuro de este deporte? ¿Y qué habría que hacer para atraer a más jóvenes y más mujeres al mundo del tiro?
Well, the future, I think, could be really bright. If you look at the other top sports in the world, or just any top sport in the world, not the other, because shooting is not a top sport yet. But if you look at any top sport in the world, what motivates younger and just beginning athletes in whatever sport it is, and I always look at golf as an example, but the money at the top level is really, really high. And so everybody who starts golf at a young age that sees, hey, I want to be like Scotty Scheffler, I want to be like, Roy McIlroy, I want to be like Tiger Woods. You have to have names at the top of the game that people aspire to be like, and that'll grow the sport. And so part of that is, if the top shooters are making a good living shooting, then other people are going to want to aspire to be like them. And so it's unfortunate that, the FITASC organization has taken money out of the game. Like I remember back in 2007, Richard Faulds won the World FITASC and he won a car, right? 2012, I won the World FITASC. They had taken money out of winning the world title. And I did win money there because in America, they had all these side events and I won 2 side events. But for the actual world championship title, there was no money. So we need more tournaments like the one coming up in Abu Dhabi. We need more tournaments like Fujairah, like back in 2014 and 2015, like the Dubai shoots. And, in America, I think we have a huge potential to have bigger payouts at all these tournaments. And I don't want to make it about the money because the reason why I shoot is because I love the game. But if we had bigger payouts, I think it would help more younger shooters continue to shoot after high school, after college, because there's a youth program in America that is called the SCTP, the Scholastic Clay Target Program. And they have a national championship in July every year. And I think there's like 10,000 kids that compete at this. I mean, think about that, 10,000 kids. Now that's a combination of the shotgun and I think it's rifle and pistol. But still, in the shotgun alone, I think there's over 3,000. I mean, that's bigger than our national championship in sporting clays. And so if you can tap into, keeping those younger shooters connected to clay shooting as they get into their 20s and 30s and 40s, before, they go and, work and make money to hopefully compete again when they can afford it. I mean, it's just there has to be more done to keep those younger shooters in the game. And I believe that would be connecting with non-industry sponsors, or even like having, so in the NSCA, the American Shoots, there's a fee that we have to pay for every registered target that we shoot, and that fee goes to the NSCA. Raise that fee another $1 and collect a prize fund and use that to build up the payouts. There's a couple bigger shoots next year that are really raising their payouts here, which is great. I mean, it's definitely starting to progress that way. You've got, I think, the Browning Briley Championship in America. First place last year or this year was $20,000. I think it's going up next year. First place at the Jack Links, I think, is like $20,000. Our Western Regional next year is $20,000, and there's bigger payouts. Like if you make the top 5 in your class, I think you're going to end up making some money. Abu Dhabi this year, $100,000 for first place, paying down however many spots. Even ladies is a $100,000 payout for first place. And so it is happening. It's kind of happening slowly, but it's encouraging. And so I would hope that more and more of these competitions are going to be on the calendars in the future. I know in Europe they have those Eurocash shoots, and I think that's really elevating the Europeans' game. Like back when I first started, everyone in Europe was so much better than America, and then Americans kind of caught back up a little bit. And then for a while, I think from 2012 to recent years, the Americans have kind of jumped up a little bit, and now the Europeans are kind of coming back up because of the Eurocash shoot, not only because of the money, but because of the level of difficulty of targets that are thrown at that Eurocash shoot. And so anyway, all that being said, that's a long answer to the question of what can we do to keep the game growing? Where do I see it? Well, I think we just keep progressing and keep trying to move forward, and I think we just keep going, kind of like the movie Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming, keep swimming, keep swimming. I mean, we're gonna create a better place than what we currently have now, which is still a great. There's been progression since I started. 31 years ago for sure. And that we just have to keep going, keep moving forward.
Uh-huh. Y bueno, ya para terminar, ¿qué mensaje te gustaría transmitir a los tiradores que quieren llegar alto como tú? Mira, como Jorge, por ejemplo.
There's no substitute for hard work, and there's no substitute for experience. You've got to put in the work, and you've got to go through the ups and the downs. And if you can handle the downs, it'll make you better. It'll make you a better shooter if you can learn from your mistakes. And so, yeah, and then also ask yourself, why do you compete? Because it's so easy to get wrapped up in the wins and the losses. And so, you know, what's your why? I would say, like, why do you compete? And so, you should always be doing it for the love of the game. And then if you are doing it for the love of the game, then I think you have a really great chance of becoming the best that you can be. And yeah, so shortest answer of the podcast right there.
Bueno, pues Gebben Miles, un súper placer que hayas aceptado esta invitación. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Y bueno, antes de que te fueses, me gustaría que mandaras un saludo a los seguidores de TiroYCaza. ¿Podría ser?
Gracias.
Muy bien.
I forget all the Spanish words, but thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. To you, Edurne and Jorge, and one more time on your name.
Patricia.
Patty, that's fine. It's
Patty.
fine.
Well, thank you all for having me on, and it's been an honor to be on here, and hopefully I can meet all of you in person sooner than later.
Uh-huh. Muchas gracias, de verdad.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will text you and send you
much.
videos of the podcast, okay?
All right, perfect.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Happy
Thank you
Saturday.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Thank you.
Saturday.
Bye.
Thank you.